back down and shut your trap. It's time for
Keeping It Sports with M3.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Well, I'll need some beer.
Are you ready?
You have to ask me nicely.
Come on now, don't be bashful.
Are you ready? Are you ready for
Place for the best sports talk and news surrounding each league.
I can prove it with my usual flawless logic.
Hey, man, this time I'm gonna do it my way.
What's your name again?
And now, here's your host, M3, Mike Rosansky. Coming to you from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's time for Keeping It Sports with M3, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well here on this Monday, the 19th day of the month of August, continuing on in my favorite month of the year for personal reasons. We'll get to that next week. Hope you're all having a great start to your week. Hope you're all having a great start to your day. A day in which I'm going to be talking a lot of baseball here, as there's some things going on with the Yankees that are annoying the living crap out of me, as usual. I'm never fully content because I have higher expectations for them rather than just having a good regular season record. Give you some thoughts on a trade that went down in the NFL last week. A couple of injuries that could alter some teams' plans going into this season. A potential stupid rule that MLB is thinking about instituting, or at least floating that idea out there. But there's going to be a lot of football talk here because I feel like we're getting to that point in August, and we get to it every year in August, where everyone has had enough of the preseason. Everyone is getting antsy for the regular season because we all know that the preseason is a bunch of garbage. The preseason is a bunch of trash. The starters, if they play for maybe a series or two. In some cases, if you're a younger player, you play the first quarter. But you don't really grapple anything from the preseason. The greatest example to me on why the preseason should be compared to non-alcoholic beer is years ago, my first year after high school, 2007 I believe it was, when the Detroit Lions went 4-0 in the preseason. Would you like to guess what their regular season record was? Yep, that's right. The Big Donut. Something that my buddy Billy, who's watching right now, what's up, Billy? I'm sure he does not want to ever relive in his mind that hideous, awful team that was the 2007 Detroit Lions. At this point in the calendar, you get a lot of people wanting to throw crazy things out there. Talk about stuff that they're so antsy about football, that they're so jacked up about football. Whether it be on Saturday, Patrick Mahomes having the gall to throw a pass behind his back to Travis Kelce, and he's saying, that's just because Travis ran the wrong route. If that's really what we're going to be doing here, then I guess we're going to see that a lot this season, considering Travis, as great a player as he is, usually gets by a lot purely based on his athleticism and his sheer massive size over all of his competition. We know it's not because of his brain power and his smarts. Or the thing that ESPN wants to be an ongoing topic, wants to be the number one thought on all of our minds throughout this entire off-season into training camp. I don't think there's a day that has gone by in which ESPN has not broken this down at one point. the quarterback situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I gotta be honest with you. Unless we wake up tomorrow and see that suddenly Brandon Ayuk is a Pittsburgh Steeler, I don't have high expectations for the Steelers this year. I look at them as a distant fourth place team in the AFC North when you consider Joe Burrow is back and healthy. He's got one of the top threats in the NFL in Jamar Chase. The Baltimore Ravens are coming off of a season where they were the number one seed in the AFC, and Lamar Jackson, is motivated to put to rest all of that talk of he's just a regular season MVP. He can't get it done in the month of January because they all, no matter how much they want to push it aside, act like it's no big deal, they all have that demon that hangs over them. That demon that is the roadblock to them holding up the Lombardi Trophy. And that, of course, is Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. So that they are not going to take any games off. They're going to come out firing from the start. And the Pittsburgh Steelers just don't have the firepower to match those teams. Hell, I don't think they even have the firepower to match the Cleveland Browns, because now you have a Browns team that Deshaun Watson is coming off of an off season where he had no nonsense surrounding him. There was no talks of suspensions. There was no talks of courtroom settlements, anything like that. Didn't have to deal with any injuries. Got to go through a normal off season. And I believe we're going to, for the first time in years, see the Houston Texans version of Deshaun Watson. At least we better, when you consider the amount of money that this guy is making on that fully guaranteed contract. So the Steeler quarterback situation, I'm kind of blah on it, because you look at it. Justin Fields has been aight in his first two preseason games against the Texans and the Bills, but I still think that Mike Tomlin is going to give the nod to Russell Wilson at the beginning, even despite getting sacked 3 times by the Bills on Saturday. Then you got topics like, I flip on my television this morning at 8 o'clock, come downstairs to feed my pets, and what is the first thing that I see on my TV? Oh, is Caleb Williams on track to be a superstar? People, it is his first year in the league. It's 2 preseason games in. Yes, that was an amazing pass he had to Rome Odunze in the game against the Bengals. But can we calm the hell down? Look at that division that he's in. You've got the Detroit Lions, who are coming off of a year where they fell just short of reaching the Super Bowl. The Green Bay Packers, who a lot of people are looking at as one of the top contenders coming out of the NFC. You have a Minnesota Vikings team that's going to be led by Sam Darnold, as they're not going to have their rookie quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, all this year after going through surgery on a torn meniscus. And you're asking this kid to come in on a team that, yes, they've put weapons around him, unlike what they did with Justin Fields. But you're asking him to already come in and be a star. Can we let him ease into his rookie season, please, for God's sakes? Do we always, with all of these guys, whether it's him, whether it was Trevor Lawrence, whether it was Deshaun Watson, do we all have to be that first guy that is crowning them right away? Let them just come in, begin their career, and let their God-given abilities show to us what they truly are. Time will tell whether they're that guy, whether they're, as the kids say these days, him. But to already be labeling him or saying, is he on track to be a superstar when he's played 2 preseason games? A bit ridiculous. And then there's the New York Giant fans, who I must talk off a ledge today. The New York Giant fans who, as I'm standing there at work on Saturday, are panicking, are in freak out mode over Daniel Jones's first preseason performance, from which that he threw 2 interceptions in his first 3 drives of the game, came close to throwing a pick in his first play of the game. I can completely understand why Giant fans are burmissed or upset by this, because here you have a quarterback that they paid $40 million per season to. You have a lot of expectations placed on his shoulders when you give that kind of contract to. It's an off season in which the Giants saw their best offensive skill player leave via free agency and go to a division rival. So Giant fans are going to be on edge. Giant fans are going to be upset. Giant fans are going to nitpick at every little thing. Even with a guy in his first game action, mind you, his first game action since last November, after tearing his ACL, now he's back playing in preseason games. He's trying to shake the rust off. He's trying to regain his confidence in that knee and prove to himself that I can make plays, I can run around, scramble, get hit without the fear of re-tearing this knee, without getting injured again, because injuries have been a big part of the story so far for Daniel Jones. But all of the booing at MetLife, all of the calls already for Tommy DeVito are not going to do well for this kid's psyche. Unless he gets hurt, unless he falls on his face and tears something else, or God forbid there's some accident in real life that prevents him from being the Giants quarterback in week 1, he's going to be your opening week quarterback. He's going to, in all likelihood, be your quarterback for this 17-game regular season. I mean, look at the options after him to turn to. Drew Lock, who has never done anything in this league, was a failure with both the Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks. And then you've got Tommy DeVito, who I know he was a cute little story there, won a couple of games for the Giants late in the season when they teased wild card contention in late November into December. But then you really started to see who the real Tommy DeVito is. Once teams had some film on him, once teams had tape on him, realizing that he's not a fast guy. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. He's a smart kid, will make the correct pass, but he doesn't have the elusiveness or mobility to avoid a good pass rush, and doesn't have the arm strength to outthrow certain protections from a defense. But he became this cult hero for the Giants and Giants fans that, to me, if he's still on this team at the start of the season, I think that's the worst thing you can do for Daniel Jones. You can't have a situation where on opening day, Daniel Jones throws a first quarter interception or has multiple interceptions in the first half of a game at MetLife Stadium, and the crowd is chanting for the third string quarterback. That would be a lot like what Mark Sanchez had to go through the year that Tim Tebow was on the Jets. This year has to be the year where you find out once and for all whether he's the guy, whether he is your starter or not. You don't owe him really anything after this year. This is the last year of his guaranteed money. And you've got some options out there in free agency this coming offseason the number one being Dak Prescott. I know Giant fans don't like to hear that, but Dak Prescott is a far superior quarterback to Daniel Jones and would be an upgrade for this team and would put the Dallas Cowboys to being a shell of themselves since they don't have any internal options to replace him immediately. It's also an important year for Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen because there were talks after last year when the Giants had a disappointing 6-11 season of, is Brian Daboll the guy? Is he going to lose his job after 1 year? I think if the years were reversed and you had the 6-11 year first, and then you had the 9-7-1 season with making the wild card, that would have been better for this team. That would have been better for this coaching staff. That would have been better for this regime rather than the expectations being ratcheted up after that playoff win against the Vikings 2 years ago. So Brian Daboll's job could be on the line here. Daniel Jones, his job is definitely on the line here. But the freak out and the panic from Giant fans after one preseason game, to me, was a little bit too much. Yes, he has not been the healthiest quarterback in the world, and he has definitely not lived up to that 6th overall pick billing so far for the Giants. He's shown some good signs, shown that he can run, he has a strong arm, but hasn't been consistent enough to live up to that hype and live up to this contract that they gave him. And that's why this is an important year for him, important year for this Giant franchise. Saturday was not a good start, but the panic and freak out by this fan base is not going to help matters. You need to rally behind this guy if you expect to have a big year, because Malik Neighbors can't save him on his own. It's going to take Daniel Jones executing and not having the entire world against him for the Giants to have their best success this year. All right, I'm going to take my first break of this podcast, but I got a lot left I want to talk about. Give you some thoughts on the Yankees coming up, a trade that went down in the NFL, and why I'm feeling a little bit more bullish on my Jets this week than maybe I should. Mix in some thoughts about Caitlin Clark and the WNBA, a stupid rule that MLB is considering for the future. So a lot I want to talk about over the next about 45 minutes or so here. Glad you guys could join me once again this week. And as I tell you guys each and every single week at this time, please sit back, relax, help put your feet up if you feel like it, and continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
A 3-3 homestand for the Mets against two of the worst teams in baseball is not exactly what I expected, and not exactly what I think any Met fan should have been expecting heading into what is going to be a season-deciding stretch for them. We've talked about it for weeks, these upcoming 10 games, 3 against the Baltimore Orioles, 4 in San Diego against the Padres, and then 3 in Arizona against the Diamondbacks. That right there is probably going to be what decides this Mets team's season. And losing 2 out of 3 to the Oakland A's, who I doubt that there is any baseball fan out there that can name any Oakland A's beyond their closer, Mason Miller. They've got a lot of either young guys or retreads that nobody wanted on their team playing for them right now. And you lose 2 out of 3 to this team, including Tuesday night. You're down 7-1 before you can even blink. You got this guy, Austin Adams, who I doubt anyone even remembered was on the Mets at one point this season, poking fun at the Jose Iglesias "Oh My God" song after a strikeout to end the 6th inning. And the uproar and the annoyance from Met fans and players, including Edwin Diaz, saying he went too far, he went over the line. You reap what you sow here, Met fans. You reap what you sow, Mets organization. Because when you have things like that surrounding your team, whether it be the cute thing with Grimace throwing out a ceremonial first pitch about 2 months ago, and that's where a lot of people date back the Mets starting to play well and get themselves into wild card contention. Or Iglesias coming on the scene as just a minor league signing for them, comes up onto this roster, gets a couple of big hits, and you find out that he's a singer as well, and he has that post-game concert at Citi Field back in June. When you start to struggle and another team has the opportunity to rub it in your face with something like that, they're going to do that. And if you don't want that happening, then go out there and beat them. Go out there and win ball games rather than complain in the media and act like a bunch of babies. Now, the one thing here, the Mets, it seems like, care at times, and I mean this as an organization thing, not so much a team thing. They care more about the off-the-field nonsense, the off-the-field crap, than they do actually winning baseball games. So much so that, why the hell are they bringing in the Haktua girl to throw out a ceremonial first pitch? Now, I understand in the end that it turned out that it was kind of a charitable thing, and she was raising attention for a charity that is important to her. But you make yourselves look like dopes. You make yourselves look like fools with some of the things that they do as far as trying to get attention, try to bring people to the ballpark. And I think that covered up what was an awful loss for the Mets on Thursday, losing 2 out of 3 to the A's in a game where you had a 5-0 lead. Then Quintana comes out, walks the ballpark, gives up a grand slam, and gives the A's a chance at life, gives the A's a thought of, hey, we can win this game. I've said before, when you have these crap teams, you got to stomp the hell out of them early and not give them any chance of life, give them any chance of thinking that they are in this game. Keep them as unmotivated as humanly possible. Otherwise, they think that they're alive, that they're going to be spunky, they're going to do some crazy things, and it leads you to a spot where you lose 2 out of 3 to them. You're forced to be in a position to sweep the Marlins. And after winning the first 2 games, you have a dud on Sunday where you are never able to come up with that big hit. And I'm starting to realize this about the Mets. I'm starting to realize that no matter how many bad losses they have, whether it be losing 2 out of 3 to the Angels in Anaheim, or be the sweep at the hands of the Mariners where they scored 1 run across that 3-game series, there's never going to be that death moment for the Mets this season. There's never going to be that true knockout punch where you look at it and say, oh, the Mets season is over. It's going to be a ghost town in September. We talk about this 10-game problem that they got coming up with the Orioles, Padres, and Diamondbacks. Can't you see a situation where the Mets just go 5-5 and they continue to be a slow, miserable, painful time for Met fans? I think a lot of Met fans want to be in the mindset of, yeah, I'd like to be in the playoffs, but I'd rather be told my season is over in September so that I can go concentrate on football or prepare for the next season to begin or get ready for Rangers or Islanders hockey than to be drawn out, dragged through the mud, and get my hopes up only to be disappointed at the end of the day. The Mets are never going to be truly killed this season. They're just going to make it very painful for you along the way. And speaking of pain, that's how I feel watching the Yankees right now. In a year where Aaron Judge is having a historic season, not just having his 300th career home run last week, but he's got 44 bombs on the year. A year that could possibly be the only time that the Yankees have Juan Soto in pinstripes, as he's set to be a free agent at the end of this year. And there's the glowing unknown on what his future holds. That's what this year should be about. The excitement of these two historically great players. But instead, every single night, it feels like there's more drama. Every single night, there's more cringe, there's more nonsense when it comes to the Yankees. Especially when you consider you have a manager that you can't trust his word with anything. He goes on John Boy Media with one of their podcasts last week, has the nerve to say that even despite Jose Trevino returning, Austin Wells is still going to get the bulk of catching time. Well, Jose Trevino has been the starting catcher for 2 of the last 3 games since coming off of the IL. And why that looks stupider is the fact that Thursday was an off day. You were facing a right-handed pitcher on Friday night and on Saturday afternoon. And then knowing you had Skubal coming up on Sunday night, and in all likelihood we're going to go with this nonsense of we like the matchup rather than Wells facing a lefty, you decide to have Trevino catch 2 out of 3 games against this Tigers team, taking one of your hottest bats out of the lineup. Go look at the numbers. Austin Wells, since Trevino's injury over the last month, has been the 3rd best offensive player for this Yankees team. I know Skubal is really good. He's one of the favorites to win the American League Cy Young this year. But I'm sorry, did I fall asleep and he suddenly become Randy Johnson? He's a good young pitcher, but can we not act like he's the most unhittable thing on the planet? You can't hide Wells from lefty pitching for the entirety of his career. And hell, he's hit lefties this year better than Trevino has. I know it's a slight difference, but Wells is hitting 225 against lefties. Trevino's hitting an even worse 208. And now 4 of your next 7 games are against left-handed starting pitchers. So with the fact that they've got a day off today, Austin Wells is going to go from being your everyday regular starting catcher to now, since last Wednesday, starting 1 game and having 1 at-bat on Sunday Night Baseball against the Tigers. And speaking of that game against the Tigers last night, that is another example of why I keep saying it. The Yankees will not win the World Series this year because they can keep denying it. They can keep being delusional to it. They can keep acting like there's nothing wrong here and that we're the big morons. We're the ones that have no idea what we're talking about. But the Yankee bullpen is an immense problem for this team, especially when you consider you don't have starters that are going very deep into games. Luis Gil's been averaging 5 innings per start the last couple of starts. Rodon just got knocked around on Saturday and wasn't going deep in his last couple of starts. Marcus Stroman is a 6-inning at most pitcher, and Nestor Cortez, I know he pitched well against the White Sox, but it was the White Sox, and he's been mostly trash since the All-Star break. So you rely on this bullpen a lot, and I've talked about it for weeks. I know Weaver pitched better this weekend, but him and Mike Tonkin have been used a lot. Tommy Kahnle is really your only flamethrower in that bullpen, although he relies on his changeup a lot. Jake Cousins is a cute story, but it seems like they treat him as more of just a guy to get some out in the 6th inning. The back end of this bullpen is a disaster. The Mark Leiter Jr. trade has not worked out. He's been batting practice since he's gotten here, and when he's not getting hit, he's walking the ballpark. They've already gotten rid of De Los Santos, who they acquired at the trade deadline. So here you have it. You made 2 trades at the deadline for bullpen arms. One absolutely stinks and can't get the ball by anybody, and the other one's already been DFA'd. And on top of that, you have a closer that no Yankee fan trusts, that no Yankee fan has any confidence in Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes has been, by and large part, a very good reliever for the Yankees since they got him from the Pittsburgh Pirates. But as a closer, he leaves a lot to be desired. And they can keep denying this. They can keep acting like, oh, he's just unlucky. It's a lot of soft contact. I would buy into that if he's only blown 2, 3, maybe even 4 saves this year. People, we're not even at the end of August yet, and this guy has blown 10 saves, an MLB high. Repeat, 10 blown saves. I don't give a damn what his ERA is. I don't give a damn that he was an all-star. That was an absolute joke that he was picked for the all-star team. Yes, he's got the right temperament for the role, but he does not have the right stuff for the role, because a sinker baller is a guy that is relying on a lot of contact. A sinker baller is a guy that's not going to strike out a lot of batters. He would be better served for this team if you had him in the 7th or 8th inning where you had someone backing him up. So in case he had one of those outings where his sinker is not hitting the zone and he's walking a lot of guys, you can get him the hell out of there. Or he's having a lot of, as they call, soft contact against him, and you want someone who's a true flamethrower to come in and throw the ball by somebody. Then he can be replaced. Plus, as the closer, you're sitting around sometimes a week waiting for save opportunities. He'd be so much better off in a setup role where you can use him more often rather than just save him for a save opportunity. That's why they greatly missed the boat at this deadline, going out and getting a real closer, whether it be a Tanner Scott, and I know the Padres gave up a lot to get him, or an Estevez who ended up with the Philadelphia Phillies. The guy to me to go get was Chad Green, because he always had a lot of success here with the Yankees and has pitched very well with the Toronto Blue Jays this year. But this bullpen is going to be the cause on why this Yankee team does not win a World Series this year. That and the nonsense that they're doing at the catcher's position, if they're going to keep pulling Austin Wells out there every time there's a left-handed pitcher on the mound. For as good a season as the Yankees are having record-wise, they leave a lot to be desired and leave a lot of moments where myself and many other Yankee fans are pulling hair out of their head, especially when you have this bullpen that drives us crazy on a night in, night out basis.
I'll be back.
I mentioned this earlier, and I'm probably, I guess, a little bit foolish by thinking this, especially with how many times they've burnt me in the past, and they've left me feeling hopeless as a fan. But I'm starting to get a little bit more bullish on my New York Jets as we get closer and closer to the start of this NFL regular season. Especially when I see some of the things going on the division. Take, for example, the New England Patriots, who I think many of us expected coming into this year to be the fourth place team this season. A team that is very much bereft of talent on the offensive side of things, has a defense that is very respectable, a defense that can play with anybody, but now has traded away probably the best member of that defense. When last week they traded edge rusher Matthew Judon to the Atlanta Falcons. And when you think about it, the trade makes sense on so many different fronts. Patriots are not expecting to contend this year. This year is more so about development of young players, and when they decide to pull the training wheels off and put their young quarterback in there. So you have this guy in Judon, who, yes, he just turned 32 years old, but has been one of the more successful edge rushers in the league in the last couple of years. I know he missed most of last year due to a torn bicep, but in 2022, he had a career-high 15.5 sacks. The year before, he had 12.5 sacks. And the Atlanta Falcons, a team that has gotten a lot of attention this offseason with the signing of Kirk Cousins, the drafting of Michael Penix, have some good young skill position players there for them to throw to. They've been kind of a trendy team this offseason to come out of the NFC South. But the big problem for the Atlanta Falcons is edge rushing, is getting a pass rush on the opposition. And they have not had a guy to record double-digit sacks for them since 2016. And what happened in 2016? That's right, they went to the Super Bowl. So with Judon being unhappy with the Patriots in the final year of his contract, he was kind of moody, having a hold-in at the first padded practices for the Patriots in training camp. It only made sense for them to get him out of there, send him to a team that is willing to pay him, that has a need there, and they recoup a third-round draft pick in return for it. Now, yes, it's a hit to their defense, but like I said before, the main thing for them this year is when they get Drake May out there. And I don't think you put him out there at the very beginning, even though he has looked very solid and has shown signs of there's some talent there, there's some ability there. You need to get him some weapons. You don't want him to have a Justin Fields-like situation where he comes on to a team as an extremely high draft pick and there's no one around him that is of any quality, that he has to just pretty much live and die on his own as an NFL quarterback, as well as you want to make sure you strengthen up that offensive line so he's not getting hit as much early. So I thought that was a positive sign for my Jets, getting one of the best edge rushers in this division out of here last week, especially with some of the concerns I still have with the Jets' offensive line as far as health is concerned and whether they're going to hold up for the entirety of the season. But the even bigger thing that happened, and I never like to see injuries. In fact, even despite how much I dislike this team, despite how much I dislike this team's fan base, I really felt bad when I saw the news come down last week about Matt Milano suffering what might turn out to be another season-ending injury. You know, it's one thing if you get injured during the regular season in, say, week 8 or 9, but to have it happen in training camp is gotta be the most frustrating thing in the world, especially when you're Milano. You're just coming off of a season where you suffered a lower right leg injury and missed the final 12 games of your team's season. You work all off season to get back, get in shape, be ready to go for your team. And during practice, you suffer a torn bicep, knocking him out until December at the earliest. They're saying he could potentially return. That's a tough pill to swallow. That is something that even as a Jet fan that can't stand the Buffalo Bills fans, I feel bad for this guy, considering he's been a really good player in this league for a long time. You look at the previous 2 seasons in 2021 and 2022, he recorded over 86 tackles for the Bills, 12 tackles for loss, has been one of the best coverage linebackers in the league for the last several years, and is more or less the quarterback on that defense. He's the guy that is putting everyone in place, putting everyone in the spot that they need to be, calling out certain plays. Instead, now going to be out for likely the year. And you're looking at a Bills defense that has lost a lot of guys in recent years. Each of the last 2 years, you've dealt with season-ending injuries to Tre'Davious White. During the offseason, you lost 2 of your leaders on that defense with Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde moving on. So you've got a lot of young guys, and this is a defense that last year went from averaging 16 points a game with him to then allowing close to 20 points a game without him. And I know 4 points you can say, oh, that's not a big deal. In the NFL, yeah, that is a big deal. That could be with the strength of this division, with the weapons they have down in Miami, with the fact that with the Jets, you could be having a healthy Aaron Rodgers this year. That could be the difference between winning the division and being a wild card team or not making the playoffs at all. Because this AFC, unlike the NFC where a lot is open outside of the top 3 or 4 teams, this AFC is stacked. This AFC, you're going to see a year because somebody, and I don't want to disparage the Texans, they had a really great year last year. AFC South is the only division where there's not multiple teams in there. There's not multiple teams where you could say they could win this division. So not having Milano and giving up those extra 3 to 4 points in a game could be the difference between making the playoffs and sitting home on your couch watching the postseason like the rest of us. So that was a huge dent for this Buffalo Bills team. As I said, I'm not happy to see someone else get injured, but with the fact that the Jets play the Buffalo Bills in October on, I think it's October 14th, it could make things slightly, I don't want to say easier, but slightly better for the Jets' chances at finally ending this playoff-less hex of theirs and reaching the postseason for the first time since 2011. Hell, maybe even winning this division.
I'll be back.
After about a month-long break, the WNBA continued their season over the weekend. Remember, they're the only sport that was affected by the Olympics. They had to stop their season at what was their All-Star break and allow their stars to travel to France to compete in the Olympics. And they had about a month off there. So it was a month where we weren't seeing some of the young stars in this sport, led by, of course, Caitlin Clark. And clearly, Caitlin spent a lot of time in the film room. Clearly, Caitlin, while resting up, didn't allow herself to get too rusty over this month because she was downright awesome over the weekend against first the Phoenix Mercury and then the Seattle Storm, coming close to another double-double yesterday, putting up 29 against the Mercury on Friday night, 23 against the Storm yesterday. She's now set a new WNBA record for assists in a season. I thought someone had the best take on this, on the performance that she had over the weekend. That being Kevin Garnett. On Twitter yesterday, brought up saying, quote, "What if Caitlin Clark's Olympic break was the off-season adjustment for the league that WNBA rookies don't get before their first season?" She looked crazy out there yesterday, 100%. Can tell she was in the film room. Brings up a good point there, because in a normal WNBA season where you don't have the Olympic break there, you go right from your college season right into the WNBA year. And take the year that Caitlin Clark has had. Even though I thought that she should have been on Team USA, would have been a very worthy member of their Olympic team. Let's look at the year that she had, setting the scoring record in college basketball, both on the women's side and in general, to then taking Iowa all the way to the national championship game. All of that attention had to be mentally drawing on her beyond just the physical wear down of going that deep into the season. To then, within a week of the season ending, she was drafted number 1 overall. She had a lot of media attention on her, a lot of spotlight on her. Not far after, I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks, began training camp. Then, before you know it, she's in preseason games, jumping right into the regular season. She had no breaks whatsoever. She had to be not just physically, but mentally exhausted coming into this season. So as cool as it would have been to see her on Team USA, maybe this was the break that she needed to just kind of calm things down for a bit before getting the motor running again for hopefully a strong start for the rest of this year. Because you look at the Indiana Fever, they are 13-15 right now. Yes, 2 games under 500, but that's good enough for the 7th spot currently in the WNBA playoffs. So if the postseason began today, they would be in. The Chicago Sky, who are sitting at 8th, led by Angel Reese, would get in. And while I wouldn't expect either of those teams to be winning a championship this year, I think that would be awesome for the health of this league, for the growth of this league, with all of the attention, all of the love, the fanfare that has been drawn on to women's basketball in the last couple of years. If you get 2 of the young emerging stars that are going to be the faces of this game for hopefully the next least 12 to 15 years to make the playoffs in their rookie season. That would be an awesome thing to see. And it's just been awesome to watch Caitlin Clark evolve, go from the number 1 overall pick to having that welcome to the WNBA moment with a little bit of rookie troubles early on, to now looking like one of their premier stars going forward. And you just hope it continues because she is an amazing show to watch. One of the big things that goes on in life these days is we are very quick to cancel somebody. We don't like something that someone says, or someone's opinion differs from ours, or even if someone says something that is very hideously wrong, disgusting, we're quick to cancel them, quick to want to make them out to be a pariah. In some cases, it's well-deserved, such as I was talking about this with some family yesterday. We all remember when Kramer from Seinfeld yelled out a racial slur, and he has had his acting career pretty much killed off, only does stand-up comedy these days. And there's been other cases of that along the way where no one wants to deal with a certain person anymore for their disgusting acts. But I'm not going to do that when it comes to the comments of Red Sox center fielder Jaren Duran. What he said last week was awful. And if you weren't paying attention, 8 days ago, during a Sunday afternoon game against the Houston Astros, he was getting heckled by a fan all game long, and as he was coming up to the plate in the 6th inning, yelled at that heckler, "Shut up, you effing F word." I think you can go search what that F word he used was, but it was something that is derogatory toward gays, lesbians, transgenders, anybody from the LGBT community. Since then, MLB and the Red Sox decided that he would be suspended without pay for 2 games. His pay the Red Sox took for those 2 games, which was slightly over $8,000, gave those to the PFLAG, a group formerly called the Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. He has since apologized in not just a statement, but interviews with the media saying that, quote, "I'm sorry for my actions. I'm going to work to be better." I see a lot of people on social media wanting to just cancel this guy out, want to make him the worst human being in the world, want to put him on the level of the likes of a Trevor Bauer or a Domingo Germán. No, I'm not going to do that. I think this is a learning experience here. This is a teaching point here, where here you have a guy that, yeah, he's still young, but he's also an adult. He's 27 years old. He said a word that he shouldn't have said. And I am fairly confident that, unfortunately, a lot of us, including yours truly, use that word in our teen years once or twice. None of us are perfect. None of us are absolute angels of this world. But to just exile this guy out, push him off to the side, treat him as someone that doesn't matter, or want to ridicule him beyond belief for the word he used, that's not what I think we should be doing here. We should instead use this as a teaching moment for the younger generation on what not to do in the public eye. And he can use this as a moment to show everyone that I'm bigger than this word. I'm bigger than this, what you hope is a slight hiccup in his career, and go on and continue being a very good player in this league. Remember, this guy was the All-Star Game MVP this past year. He's not just some hack that could be out of the league after this season. He's got a promising career ahead. And I hope for his sake that this is not what we remember him for. What we remember him for is a guy that made a mistake, overcame it, and showed people that you can overcome mistakes that you make in life, and society will be willing to give you a second chance for those. And I want to close up this week with talking about the new latest stupid thing that Major League Baseball is contemplating doing. And they've made no announcements about this. They've made no press conferences saying that this is something we're planning on doing. Unlike where you've heard constantly from the horrible commissioner that is Rob Manfred talking about the robot umps or the automated strike zone that he's planning on instituting at some point in the next 2 years, or the dumbest decision he's ever made with the ghost runner, as we refer to it, the Manfred Man on second base. He wants to add a new one to his hit list of dumb decisions. It was reported last week by ESPN's Jesse Rogers that MLB is contemplating, ready for this, a 6-inning minimum for starting pitchers. That's right. They're toying with the idea of instituting a 6-inning minimum for starting pitchers, with the primary goal of this to be able to, quote, immediately restore the prestige of the starting pitcher. Fans would be able to tune into a game knowing he would be on the mound for the majority of it. And some of the stats they bring up are, you look at 2014, the first time that starting pitching averaged under 6 innings per start at 5.97. This season, it's 5.25. Down in AAA, it's 4.3 innings per start. I also think that a rule like this, they're trying to eliminate the nonsensical gimmick that is the opener. And when I first heard this, I'm like, that's the stupidest idea in the world. What if the guy gets hurt? What if the guy throws 110 pitches in the first 5 innings? Well, some of the ways that you would be able to leave early in a game include throwing 100 pitches or giving up 4 or more earned runs. Or if you get injured, but it would require a stint on the injury list to avoid some kind of manipulation here by the team. But the more I think about this, I'm like, what is the penalty for if, say, you have a starting pitcher that goes 5 scoreless innings, walks 6 or 7 batters, and it leaves before that 100 pitch mark? Say they're at 97 pitches. You're going to really make them go out there and throw those 3 extra pitches and potentially risk injury when they've had to work so hard through those first 5 innings? Is there some kind of penalty here where a pitcher wouldn't be able to pitch for 10 days after that, even if they're not hurt? I just don't understand it. See, they want the prestige to be put back in there in the starting pitching. The problem is not going to be solved with a rule like this. The problem is going to be solved if these teams stop radar gun chasing, if these teams stop training these guys to throw as hard as you can for as long as you can, if they stop with these biogenetic cameras, whatever they want to call them, that you're seeing in these bullpen sessions where they're teaching these guys all these different grips or all these different ways to manipulate how they're twisting their wrist or twisting their arm in throwing a pitch to get the correct spin rate or a different trajectory on the break of their ball. It's also not going to change until you change things at the lower levels of baseball. Because when I was a kid, there wasn't these year-round travel leagues. There wasn't the baseball going on 365 days a year. It was you play baseball in the spring and summer and then go play a different sport for a couple of months and pick up your glove again in March and start throwing the baseball. Go make yourself an all-around athlete. Instead, now you've got these parents that want their kids to decide what they're going to be right here, right now, at the ages of 11 and 12 years old. And that takes a taxing on these kids' arms. And that they're living with this stupid mindset of, oh, it doesn't matter if my kid tears his elbow, they'll get Tommy John surgery and come back throwing harder than ever. No, that's an awful way of thinking. So This is not just an MLB problem. This is a society problem when it comes to baseball, when it comes to how they're teaching these kids to pitch and having them constantly nonstop pitching at the lower levels. They need rest. They're too young to be throwing that hard, that often, and to be throwing year-round like that. It does no good for anybody. This rule is not going to help anyone, and it's just going to, if anything, lead to more injuries if teams are feeling forced to keep their guys out there. Plus, something like this is going to need to be collectively bargained. You can't just create a rule like this in a vacuum. And the players' union, one of the strongest players' unions in all of sports, probably the strongest, is going to be 2 steps ahead of them because they're going to see this as Manfred and the owner's way of trying to devalue relief pitchers and bring their salaries down. I want the opener eliminated more so than anybody else. And if that's made a rule as far as banning that, I'm fine. But to make a mandatory innings count as far as how many innings you have to go in a start without any true penalty to it seems extremely, extremely dumb on baseball's part. But then again, they've done a lot of dumb things in recent years. The ghost runner, the umpires that they continue to allow to work in this league. Who's going to be surprised if they institute this crap in the next couple of years? And that, my friends, was Keeping It Sports with M3 from Monday, August 19th, 2024. Everyone, please have a great night. Have a fun, safe, happy, healthy week. You get one life, people, so you might as well try to live it up. And I'll talk to you guys again, same time, next week. Until then, peace.
We have to go. Good night, everybody. I have had enough of you. Thank you for all the fun. Thank you. Hey, shut up, will you?
I don't want to see you, I don't want to hear you, I don't want to smell you. Now leave. I'll be back.